Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Avartan.
Hi. How is it go?
Yes, yes. Am I audible and visible? All good?
Yes, I think so. Uh,
Okay.
we're good to go, sir.
Right.
Absolutely. So
Nice to see you.
let me quickly get started with introducing you to our audience. And I can see quickly that a whole bunch of people are joining in now as as the notifications go out through our Instagram, both on your pages and ours. Um, but just to quickly introduce, it's a real privilege to have Coach Munir here today. He's one of the leading ultra running coaches in the country. He has over 25 years of experience. He's been running almost 25 years ultra marathons across the country and coaching people to run ultra marathons across the country. He runs his own community, Explore Runners, that he's been head coach for since 2016. Sorry. He was also a certified coach with the RPF Central Railways, for athletics. And of course, he's one of the amazing sort of pillars of the running community here in India, with a whole bunch of social causes, including, I think, platelet donation, which he does almost every other week. Right, Coach?
Right.
So,
You can safely do it once in a fortnight.
Superb. So it's a real privilege to have him here. And the whole idea was today to sort of get some of the rich experience that he has in terms of helping people bridge the gap between running something like a 5K or a 10K to finally run ultra marathons. I think especially relevant for somebody like me who's barely running single-digit runs, in his early part of his sort of running journey. So it's great to have you here, Coach. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thank you so much, Avartan and Sarthak as well for having me. And looking forward to your questions.
No, absolutely. No, absolutely. I think the first question how did you get into running? I mean, where did it all start? It would be great to just know where your journey started.
Yeah, so as you just said, NCC is a 3-year program which is conducted across the country during your undergraduate studies.
Yeah.
And I was part of the NCC in my college days. And as part of your drill, as part of your training, you've got to run. That's the first thing that you do when you get on the field with your fellow cadets. So that has stuck with me through life, and I'm happy that it happened.
Super. And Coach, what are some of the sort of favorite ultras that you run through the year? Like, what are your favorite destinations or favorite events that you go to?
Okay, so one of the favorite is the 24-hour stadium runs that happen in various cities. NEB Sports, organizes it, and that is one carnival of a race. It's not only the 24-hour run, but also there are other segments, other categories like the 12-hour run. There are relay runs. So it's full on dhamal.
Nice. Fantastic. No, definitely look forward to meeting you.
Stadium run, I wanted to impress upon is usually running is not a spectatorial sport.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas this is the only event where there are spectators, there are your team members, your entire community watching over you and cheering you on.
Yeah, for distance running, it's one of those. Yeah, absolutely. I think after 10K, everything goes out, outdoors. So, yeah, fantastic. Right. So, Coach, let me sort of get into the heart of it, right? I think there are a whole bunch of folks here as well, joined live on the call who are, I'm sure, at various stages of their sort of running journeys, right? Some will be like early runners like me. Some will probably be very comfortable running full marathons, for example, or half marathons on any given day. Can you sort of break down for us what are the different stages of development for runners as you see them? Like, what are the different stages one should look forward to?
Okay, for a absolute newbie, 5K is a very good starting point. Only because 5K has, excuse me, the 5K, anybody would have experienced being on their feet for about 45 minutes to an hour. Yeah. And generally, when you're on your feet or walking for at least 45 minutes to an hour, you would have covered that distance of 5 kilometers.
Yeah.
So that is a normal easy walk that anybody does.
Yeah.
So that is something that you can start with. Try to get that timing down. So if you started doing a 5 kilometer walk and it took you about 40-50 minutes, then you start working on it by
Got it.
adapting yourself to that distance, going week by week, trying to run or walk every alternate days. Walk run is something that you start with. Somebody who's already accustomed to running or who's had a athletic past can really start running short distances, like either distance or time. So you can do a time-based plan, or you can do a distance-based plan. A time-based plan would mean that you take a 5-minute block and do a 4-minute walk and a 1-minute run.
Okay.
And then you keep gradually changing that ratio from 3:2, and then 2:3, and 1:4, and that's how you get into that habit of running. And once you are in the habit of running for about a month or so, every alternate day, you'll be surprised that running actually gets it's an addiction. You can actually get addicted to it, and
Absolutely.
then the sport itself can take care of you.
Fantastic. Just ease into it, and then it'll carry you forward. Beautiful. And if you look at someone who is aspiring to, let's say, run an ultra marathon, I'm presuming that the jump to ultras requires some prerequisites, right, and some sort of stages in between. What are some of the milestones that you look for in somebody when they come to you and say, I want to run an ultra, coach, help me run an ultra?
Yeah, so for running an ultra distance is anything beyond 42.2 kilometers. So beyond the full marathon is called an ultra. So any distance, it could be 44 to the sky's the limit, you can go. So there are some crazy distances people do, so that is a discussion for another day. But when it comes to transitioning, you got to have at least three full marathons in your kitty under your belt, and not just running the race. What I mean by doing full marathon is going through the entire training cycle. So if you've been through 3 training cycles, you have kind of adapted to that kind of intensity, that kind of frequency and volume that comes in making an ultra marathoner.
Correct. And in terms of the sort of preparation for it itself, right? What are some of the key ingredients, for sort of making that journey? What are the big things to focus on?
Okay, first of all, discipline is the base of everything that comes with marathon training. So discipline is something that is non-negotiable. I think everybody who aspires to run a marathon has to get that in place. And discipline is something that can be equated to habits. And if you're able to, make it a habit, then it becomes easier on you. All you got to do is show up. So if you had a training plan, and if you showed up every single day through that entire journey, then your journey is going to be really enjoyable. You will have tough times. Any sport entails that. But then you will also have the wherewithal to overcome those obstacles and challenges.
Fantastic. So I think just showing up is sort of has been quite underrated for a while, but there've been a whole bunch of sportsmen, whether it's if I'm not mistaken, Rahul Dravid spoke about it once. Even Harsha Bokil has eloquently almost written a book, I think, on just the quality of just showing up every day of the week. Just turning up every day of the week sort of makes the big difference between some of the greats versus some of the guys who were good, had talent, but didn't quite flourish.
Right.
Fantastic. And how important is it to build a community around you? What's the role of the coach in all of this? Just sort of to clarify for somebody who's aspiring to get into distance run.
So there are 2 sides to having a coach. One is the coach itself, and how do you select a coach, and whether you are coachable yourself. So these are 2 aspects that are very, very important. So come to the first one, because most people do not have access to coaches and they do on their own. So to actually identify a good coach, I think there are, as Shamal Vallabhji, a sports scientist and also our teacher in Exercise Science Academy, had once, he's just recently posted on this particular subject. And he says a coach should have the 5 C's. Apart from the C of coach itself, you have to have these 5 C's. And what he says is the first C is competence. The person himself should be able to run and be able to coach. So that's the skill sets that he has. The second is comfort. So he should be able to make you comfortable and should have a one-on-one personal relationship with you. Number 3 is confidence. He should be able to instill confidence in the athlete. Number 4 is character. Is he willing to go beyond for you as an athlete? That's the character of the coach I'm talking about. And the 5th one is composure. Is he able to instill that sense of calm in you? So if you have these 5 C's, and the biggest one in that competence compartment is that guy, whether is he knowledgeable, is he certified, does he have all that in his toolkits to be able to guide you? And on the coachable side, I think your ability to have feedback, talk with your coach as often as you possibly can, should be good enough for being coachable.
Fantastic. I mean, as I was listening to your list, I thought it makes a list for any good teacher, not just a coach. Like any good teacher should have those, if you were to describe a great teacher in life or a great mentor in life, those 5 C's would definitely form. So it's a beautiful insight in terms of somebody who can really be a true guiding light to you, right? If they don't know what they're doing, there's very low likelihood that they will guide you in the first place. So
the perspective that the coach brings in and the experience that the coach brings in, and the mistakes that the coach has done himself.
It's a very good point.
Are great insights for somebody who's looking for a coach.
Super. And so, on the topic of mistakes, what are some of the basic mistakes that people do when they start training for distance running? Like, what are the sort of most novice things that you've seen people do that you think, so we want to learn? What are some of the mistakes you've seen over the last few years, over the last few decades that you've been coaching?
So, one of the things that anybody who starts running has one habit of looking down. Looking down. And when you do that, just that act of looking down and just focusing on the road underneath your feet, that actually creates a whole ripple effect in your running form.
Wow.
Okay, so just that simple thing, like looking down, what happens is you're moving your head, you're tilting your head forward, creating an angle. Even a 5-degree angle can actually increase the weight of your head almost double. And that actually has a ripple effect on your entire kinetic chain. When I say kinetic chain, it's basically all the joints stacked one.
All your vertebrae in the spine.
One below the other. So that is one thing that I can pinpoint on. Everybody makes that mistake. It is very natural that you look down. And if you just get that right, then your form kind of helps you be in the right running gait.
Super.
That's just one.
Sorry?
That is just one.
Any others if you see? In terms of, how to pace yourself or what targets to set yourself, do you see people being too ambitious or being too slow? How do you think of setting goals for a runner? How does one go about? Because there's a lot of people here, I'm sure, like me, who wonder what's the right target to set themselves.
Okay, so you should know yourself first of all, and there is, in like any, you have the pyramid of the food chain, you have pyramids in various models that we use. So there's a pyramid in the marathon world as well. So pyramid is, the lower stack is basically your all the base building that you do, stamina, mileage, you create that habit, you adapt into a certain running form, gait. Once you have that foundation right, if you're doing all of that correctly, and adding the volume, then you stack a smaller block, which is speed. You can then transition to speed.
Correct.
And a very simple way of transitioning into speed is just have short bursts of say 20 seconds within your run session, and it should be right in between the run session. So if you are doing a 5 kilometer run, leave about 2 odd kilometers for you to get completely warmed up, and
Yeah.
you're raring to take up those short bursts.
Right.
Those little things that you can quickly do. It is almost like an interval training done in a very unstructured way, and you can
Correct.
do that just finding the next milestone, or a next street lamp. You run towards the street lamp for 50 meters, and that should be good. And you do 3 or 4 repetitions, and
Bring it up.
that's how you build speed. And then you have bigger versions. You have a 100-meter repeat, 200-meter, 400, 800, and it goes on. So this is how you transition into speed.
And if you look at some of the exercises that go along with this, right, training outside of the running itself, are there specific forms of exercise or types of exercise that work well for runners?
Yeah, actually, strength training is, any new runner or any runner who's not had exposure to a coach or a community, he's probably running every day without realizing what he's doing to himself. Running is a very high impact sport. It looks like a very easy sport, but it is the toughest because in running you are at a high intensity. You never have a heart rate less than 130, 140.
Yeah.
Okay, when you're running, and no other sport gets you to that high heart rate for a long period of time. You'll have short bursts in most sports, but running, long distance running, you'll have it up at that 160 for say 1 hour, 2 hours, that kind. That is one aspect. The second aspect is your landing. You land on 1 foot all the time, and when you're landing on 1 foot, you're going 5 to 6 times your body weight into the ground, with gravity pulling you. So that's the kind of impact that the distance running on the foot. So it's not as easy as people think it is, though it looks very very natural and things like that. But these are things that you need to be mindful of, because of which you need to have strength training incorporated in your running. And I am a proponent of barefoot training. So apart from running, all your other exercises should be barefoot. And there has to be a lot of emphasis on your foot intrinsics, which is largely completely missed by most coaches or most training groups. But the foot is, because there are 50 odd bones, there are 32 joints in your foot, there are 100 odd ligaments and muscles there. Why would you miss out on that very important foundation? And every time you strike the floor, the ground, that's where you're making connection with the surface that you're running.
Absolutely. And it's the entire spring action that orchestra of bones and ligaments that provides, in your foot, that actually delivers the propulsion forward. Back in my biomechanics phase, that was something that we studied very carefully, which is they're very delicate, actually, the bones in the foot.
Absolutely.
But they orchestrate this beautiful spring action for you to move ahead. What kind of sort of exercises or training do you recommend to folks who need to strengthen, let's say, not just the foot, but the stability around the foot, let's say, and the entire knee?
So it's basically foot being the foundation. You have to do total body workouts. I always see the body as an integrated one, and getting the entire body to act together is very functional. And most things that we do are functional. We are integrative in the way we move. If you can't move one side of your body without actually affecting the other side, You know, when you lift your arm, there are muscles going across. You know, just an example. So integrated whole body,
Basically,
total body
get
workouts.
your whole body going so that there are no imbalances
Exactly.
across muscles. Fantastic. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Very, very nice word you use, imbalance. It's very touchy for me. I always make sure that there is, as much as possible, you avoid imbalances. You know, try to strengthen both feet, both legs, both hands, both arms, or, you know, the entire body. So,
Yeah,
yeah, total body workouts.
absolutely. It's very interesting, coach. I don't know if it's relevant at all, but you know, when I after a long hiatus started running again, I noticed actually my feet had an imbalance. So actually, I was more right-footed than left-footed, which was very bizarre because there's no real. I mean, you can understand you get right-handed and left-handed over a period of time, you know, depending on what your proclivity is. But even with feet, I noticed that my strides are actually different, and then you know, that became a whole new thing by itself because getting out of that is not that easy. You know, there's a certain naturalism that your body has, and
Yeah, so you
getting
have
out
a
of
dominant side.
that.
Most people have a dominant side, and then that dominant side kind of affects that imbalance kind of shows up elsewhere. You know, you will have a pain elsewhere in your body,
Yeah.
while the actual cause is the other foot maybe. You know, it's it has that kind of effect.
Fantastic. On this topic, coach, one of the, you know, we were talking to a bunch of runners, and, you know, one of the questions that they had was, you know, after a while, they've been doing this for a year or 2 years, their timings start to plateau out, right? And they start seeing that the increments that they're getting, you know, month on month, race on race are coming down. But there's obviously a law of diminishing returns. You can't obviously permanently keep increasing, but are there specific, you know, tricks of the trade or any specific different kinds of trainings that you give for people who've reached such a plateau? How do you, what's the attitude to approach, you know, such a stage in your running development?
Yeah, hitting a plateau is real, and you know you have to go through the entire periodization in a training cycle. I think that's where people miss the trick. They try to run races very often. They think they're getting stronger. They get carried away, and it's very normal and it's very natural that a person feels stronger and feels like invincible after he does, you know, a sub two half marathon, for instance, and he thinks that you know he can just extrapolate it to a sub four marathon. So these kind of thoughts, this kind of thought process can really be detrimental and can cause this plateauing effect that you just mentioned. So it's imperative that somebody goes through the entire training cycle without
Right.
rushing into it. Uh, you know, see how you're going to get better through the cycle, and
Correct.
that is something that you can do. Of course, as you said, law of diminishing returns does exist, and you can only do as much as your genetics allows you. But yeah,
I think on that topic, you know, you also talked about sort of the attitude towards it. I want to understand there's obviously the physical part of running, but when it comes to distance running, it's also as much mental. And you know, if you can touch about what kind of mental conditioning there is, you know, is there something specific people need to do, or is it just something that comes naturally as you keep running races?
um, you know, it's very funny when you say mental training. The mental training is only just this: be in the moment. That's it. If you
Yes.
think too far ahead, you are missing uh, you then do wrong things. Your judgment gets altered, and you think you can do. For instance, going faster in the initial part of a marathon, for say for a 42 kilometers, you think that you'll do a 10K or do the 21K faster because it will be easier and light. A bit cooler temperature wise. So
Yeah.
you want to do it faster, and then you miss the trick there.
Yeah.
So how do you control yourself? How do you stick to the process? How do you stick to the race plan? You know, most race
There's discipline of
coaches
it, of
also
factor.
give
Yeah.
you, yeah, most coaches also help you with a race plan in terms of what your pacing has to be. But for that,
Right.
you need to go through the entire periodization to, even for the coach to determine what should be your race plan.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Somebody, while we're on the topic, I think before I move to the next set of questions, I want to check. Somebody had asked, how do you avoid knee pain, while running? Clearly, that runner suffers. I forget the name of the person who asked the question. I'm really sorry, but the question was asked. You have any tips on that specific? Apart from, of course, we spoke about a whole body exercise regimen that goes along.
So I think the person needs to see where he's landing. If he's landing way ahead of his plane of motion, then it's quite possible that he's landing on his heel and therefore creating a ripple effect up to his knees and upwards. So if he just pays attention to where he's landing, if he's landing just underneath his hip, he should be fine. He'll be in a much better space. But of course, all the other things, you need to strengthen your those muscles around your knees. You have to see whether you have certain deviations already, like a valgus knee. Your tendency of caving in of your knees. All of that is to be assessed, and he needs a coach for that. So yeah.
Get a good coach first. It's the simple answer, but I get what you're saying. Pay attention to your gait. See where the sort of is it the heel striking, or is it the whole foot striking? How are you landing basically on your foot as you're running? Fantastic. The last bit that I wanted to touch upon, which is of course a big passion for me, is as a runner, I've met now maybe 1,000 runners across the last 1.5 years, 2 years across the country. And one of the things I have noticed is that they're not exactly particular in terms of looking at their macros in their diet. Of course, the consciousness has now gone up. But certainly, when it comes to ultra running, I'm presuming you get even more conscious in terms of what the food intake is, both on a regular basis, but also on race days and on run days. So, can you talk a little bit about that aspect of sort of building up to an ultra marathon? What's the kind of diet? What should they be focusing on?
Okay, so I would like to take it from the recovery perspective. So I'll just talk about 7 elements of recovery, very important, and in that sequence. So there are 7 factors, which starts with water first. Second is sleep. Okay, third is protein intake, and vitamin D, vitamin B12, stretching, and strength training. So these 7 factors in that order have to be looked after. And if I go into specifics of these, water, there's a very easy thing that you can check your hydration status is by looking at your urine. If it is colorless, you are hydrated. So and that has to be through the day. It's not only your activity, it's not only during your endurance, session or whatever, but it has to be through the day. Second thing is sleep. I think we are always, there is always inadequate sleep for Mumbaikars for various reasons. So I think in the sleep department also you can make a small tweak. You can look at sleep for the entire week. So if you're able to get to 50 hours a week of sleeping, including short naps, you're good. Okay, with
Interesting.
sleep.
This is the first time I'm hearing this sort of metric. 50 hours in a week total sleep, so your sleep account is full. Excellent. I think that's a very important tip, especially with a lot of OTT proliferation. It's a whole bunch of people I have noticed who've not had the night sleep, and they still turn up for the run in the morning, and that's, to my mind, especially in the post-COVID era, perhaps one of the most dangerous things to do, to be honest, because sleep, and there's enough literature on this, has huge impact on your cardiac health, on a whole bunch of things actually. So, one of the things is better to stay. If you have not had a night's sleep, better to stay sleeping than get up and run a long distance. Would be my advice. But absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about the others, Coach? So you talk about, of course, after sleep protein. That, of course, being our passion, given that we
we as a nation are very carb skewed in our diet, and I think if people focus on protein, they'll get their balance right in most cases. If you just get focus on your protein intake, if you're able to get, for a person who's actually training for a marathon or any sport of that kind of intensity, 1.2 to 1.4 per kg body weight per day is what is recommended. Even
Yeah.
Akshay Kumar says that. So for a 70 gram, 70 kg athlete like me, I would have to actually have an intake of almost 85 to 100 grams of protein. And just to give you perspective on what that 100 grams can be, uh, one of the easiest, one of the most few accessible protein that you have is curd, which gives you about 25 odd grams per cup. Then you have peanut butter, that's about 3 grams per spoon. Then you have, so egg, which is about 7 grams per big egg.
Yeah, absolutely.
And meat like chicken and fish can give you about 35, 32 odd grams per 150 grams of raw. So I'm just saying, if you add up all these things also, you'll not be able to reach that 100. So, so it becomes a difficult proposition to get your top protein intake right. And that's where people like y'all can definitely help. And your products are really good. I've actually had it, and I find that 26 grams per serving is good with all the other ingredients in it. It's pretty good. So yeah, that's about protein, and then we have vitamin D, which is very important both for injury prevention, and also muscular performance.
Yeah.
So muscle contraction also is impacted due to vitamin D. And one way to find vitamin D deficiency is very simple. You can simply press on your midrib of your rib cage, press it hard, and if you find that there is pain, if you feel pain, then probably you are deficient, and you need to supplement it. Vitamin D supplementation is important. You can't get from food sources. It's very difficult to reach the required dietary guideline recommendations.
I had a very knowledgeable doctor once, examining me, and he said, you probably have vitamin D deficiency. I said, how do you know? He said, you work in an office. I said, yes. You work long hours. I said, yes. You have vitamin D deficiency. He was like, I don't need to diagnose anything more. All of us suffer from it. But I think the surprising part is, as runners, you would imagine that there's a lot of time spent outdoors, but you still find a lot of runners who are deficient in vitamin D, because it's a very counterintuitive thing, right? Because ultimately the act of running itself takes you out into the morning sun. So do you still find people are vitamin D deficient?
Yeah, actually, the time that you go for run is in the morning, and that's not when you get to your vitamin D. You need the afternoon sun to help you with your vitamin D requirements, which is what we all miss. So therefore, even though you are into outdoor activities, it's not necessary that you are completely adequately taken care of. So vitamin D, you definitely need outside supplementation.
Vitamin B12, I think you said, was the next.
Next one, yeah. So B12 is very interesting. See, now for runners, I personally feel, one of the very important aspects of training is also your nervous system. And I want to make sure that my athletes have a very healthy nervous system, and it should not be compromised at any cost. That includes the form while you're doing all the exercises, all these runs. Everything contributes to protecting your nervous system. And B12 also is part of it, because what it does is it helps production of nerve cells. It helps with red blood cells production. So red blood cells are basically which takes oxygen to your working muscle. So that's where B12 makes a huge impact. And again, that usually if you're a non-veg, you probably have you may be adequately, yeah, you may not be having any deficiency, but otherwise, it's quite possible that you have it. Therefore, we insist that all our athletes undertake their blood test biannually, and that's a mandate for my athletes at least.
Great.
And we have some partnerships around that also.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I think that's, of course, there are a whole bunch of now startups, with applications that are trying to give this to you all the time. But I certainly think making sure that you measure what's happening with your body periodically is almost the cornerstone of getting, to the right place. If it's not
What's
measured, it's
happening
not.
inside, what's happening inside is always a surprise.
No, fantastic. Absolutely. No, very interesting, coach. I think the last bit I wanted to just, check with you was, when you look at a runner in his early days, let's say somebody who's just starting out, and then you look at people who are running distances of 50, 100 kilometers, ultra marathons, Ironmans, it almost seems too far away. And so what's the advice you give some of the early runners who are looking at these distances and going, am I ever going to get there? Right? What do you say to these folks?
You know what? Most people who are beginners can't comprehend that somebody could run a 50 kilometer
exactly.
or a 100 kilometer or a 12-hour or a 24-hour. They just can't get it. It doesn't register in their minds. They'll hear what you're saying, but they'll completely ignore as if it was a mistake from your end.
Yeah.
So it's taking one step at a time. So I think the entire running makeup of across the globe is also very, very intuitive to this, that you start with a 5K, go to a 10K, 21K, 42K, and then you realize what your limits are and what limits you can bust. So it comes with your self-esteem at every stage of these run categories. And that's how people then think of, okay, yeah, ultra running also is something that I can try.
Fantastic. No, absolutely. No journey begins without the first step. So it's a great insight, coach. It was really fun talking to you today. Amazing, wealth of stuff. I keep talking to you for maybe an hour more, 2 hours more, but maybe we'll reserve the day where we talk about advanced, training for the ultra marathoners. But it was superb talking to you today. Thank you so much for taking the time. And to all the runners who have joined us, do make sure you get enough protein, whether it's through Food Strong or any other means, but do get enough protein. And wishing everybody some great runs through this monsoon season. Thank you so much for taking the time, coach.
Thank you so much.
So much fun talking to you. Look forward.
Take care. Yeah, bye-bye.